It's been 3 years since the bombs fell. 3 years since the day everything we thought we knew about the world was erased, like a chalkboard wiped clean in a single stroke. It happened so fast, so suddenly, that no one was prepared for it. The worst part wasn't the explosion, or the firestorm, or the fallout that followed. It was the silence, the kind of silence you never come back from. Back then, the world felt invincible. We had everything: technology, wealth, power, believed ourselves to be untouchable. But all of it crumbled in an instant. The skies went dark with smoke and ash. The sun turned into a sickly red glow that never went away, and everything we cherished was reduced to dust. I don't know if you remember that moment. For those of us still alive, it's burned into our minds. That deafening roar when the missiles hit, the earth shaking beneath our feet, the blinding light that seared everything. It felt like the end of the world. And in a way, it was. Cities vanished, entire populations wiped out in a blink, and the rest of us were left to scramble for survival in a world that no longer made sense. It's quiet now. Too quiet. There's no more shouting, no more sirens, no more people fighting for power. Only the eerie stillness of a world that has forgotten how to breathe. When it first happened, there was no warning, just a flash on the horizon. Then everything went black. People assumed it was a test. Something like that could never actually happen, right? We were wrong. So wrong, those of us left here, wandering the ruins, scavenging for whatever we can find. We're the proof that the world as we knew it is over. There's nothing left to rebuild. The old governments are gone. The power grids, the highways, the cities, all of it is nothing but rubble. The radiation's still heavy, making the land toxic to grow anything. Some days the wind blows ash from the old world, coating everything in a grim reminder of the firestorm that wiped out civilization. But it's not as thick anymore. It's like the world is slowly, quietly trying to recover. Or maybe it's just me, hoping. I've been running this broadcast for as long as I can remember. 3 years now. I don't know if anyone's listening, but it's the only thing that keeps me going. I can't let this be the last voice anyone hears. If someone somewhere is still out there, maybe they'll hear me. Maybe they'll know they're not alone. Every day feels like a dream now. Some strange, half-remembered nightmare that I can't wake up from. But there are moments. There are small flashes of something, of hope. I found a plant last month. Just a single sprout breaking through the scorched earth. It's fragile, barely clinging to life. But it's something. That little green sprout is a symbol of everything we've lost and everything we might still save. It's been a while since I've heard any other voices over the airwaves. A few weeks ago, I picked up something odd on the frequency. A faint hum, like static mixed with whispers. At first, I thought it was just the equipment acting up. But then, it came again. And again. It was too regular to be random noise. Someone was out there. Someone else was trying to reach out. I don't know who it is. I don't know if they're a friend or a threat. But I know one thing for sure. There's something happening out there. Today, I finally made the decision. Tomorrow, I'm heading out. I'm going to track the signal. I don't care how far I have to go. I've lived in the ruins of this broken world long enough to know that nothing worth saving is easy to find. The radio's been my only connection to the outside world. The hum of static is like the pulse of this new world, beating quietly in the background of everything. I've learned to listen to it, to read its rhythms and interruptions. The world is a new place, and I have to figure out how to survive in it. We all do. 3 years ago, we were a species on the brink of extinction. Now, We're just trying to survive the aftermath. People are different. Harder, maybe. I've met a few survivors along the way, but trust is a luxury none of us can afford. We keep our distance. We take what we need and move on. There are others who are more desperate. Those who didn't take the opportunity to hide or run. Those who think the world still owes them something. They're dangerous. The radiation's twisted them, warped their minds. I've seen what they're capable of. And then there are the ones who just give up. Some of them went mad. Some of them just sat down and waited for the end. But not me. Not yet. The supplies are running low, though. It's been weeks since I've come across any decent food or water. I've learned to make do with what I can find, scavenging, trading what little I have left. But it's not enough. If I don't find that signal, if I don't find other survivors soon, I'll be just another casualty of the end of the world. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. Some days, it feels like I'm the last person left. I know there are others out there, there have to be. But we're all too afraid to trust each other. Fear is a powerful thing. It can make people do terrible things. But it can also keep you alive. I've learned that the hard way. The wind outside is picking up. The days are growing colder and the nights are longer. The radioactive storm clouds still hover over the horizon, a reminder of how fragile this new world is. Sometimes I can almost feel it. Like something's coming. Like something is shifting out there. It could be the signal I've been hearing. It could be something more dangerous. But it doesn't matter. I can't sit here any longer, waiting for whatever's out there to find me. I have to find it first. The equipment's ready. My pack's packed, and my boots are tied tight. Tomorrow I leave. I don't know what I'll find or how far I'll have to travel, but there's no going back. I've heard the whispers on the radio, and it's enough to make me take that first step into the unknown. Maybe it's a trap. Maybe it's a false hope. Just another cruel joke in a world that's become nothing but tragedy. But I have to know. I can't just keep surviving. I have to live. I'm not the only one left. I know that. Out there, somewhere, someone else is listening. And if we're both still here, we have a chance. Maybe not to rebuild the world we lost, but to create something new. Something worth holding on to. It's just a glimmer of hope, but it's something. And sometimes that's all we need to keep going. Tomorrow, I find the signal. The morning light filters weakly through the thin veil of ash that still clings to the sky. It's not sunlight in the way it once was. Bright and warm, a reminder of a time when everything felt alive. Now, it's more like a dull gray filter, casting a cold, sickly hue over everything. The sky itself seems broken, unable to fully recover from the wounds left by the warheads. I don't know how long it's been since I last saw a truly blue sky, and I'm starting to forget what it even looked like. Sometimes I think I can remember it, a faint recollection of a time before everything turned to dust. But those memories slip away as quickly as they come. The world I knew is no more, and the world that's left, well, it's not the world we were promised. Outside the shelter, the earth is cracked and pockmarked, blackened by the fallout. The wind carries an acrid metallic tang, and the air still crackles with static like the sky itself is broken. Every step I take is careful, calculated. There's no room for mistakes. The last thing you want to do in this world is attract attention, not from the weather, not from the raiders, and definitely not from whatever's hiding in the wreckage of the cities. I step outside, the door creaking as I push it open. The hinges haven't worked properly in months, and every movement feels like it might be the last. The shelter I've been holed up in is one of the few buildings that didn't collapse completely during the blast. It's a crumbling old apartment complex, once a high-rise, now barely a skeleton. but it's sturdy enough to give me some protection, even if it smells like rot and old food. The walls are coated in a fine layer of dust and grime, and the windows are shattered, leaving the interior exposed to the elements. In the corner, my makeshift radio setup hums faintly, an ever-present companion in this desolate world. The equipment is patched together from scraps. Pieces of broken electronics and scavenged wires. I check it one last time before heading out, adjusting the frequency just in case there's anything new. There's nothing but static, but I've learned to listen closely. Sometimes in the silence, you hear things you don't expect. The backpack is packed with the basics: water, a few cans of food, a flashlight, and a crude knife I've sharpened more times than I can count. It's all I can carry. In this world, you don't get to carry luxuries. You carry what you need to survive, and nothing else. I pull the hood of my jacket tighter around my face, trying to shield myself from the burning wind that whips through the streets. The ash makes it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead, but I've learned the terrain. I know the abandoned blocks, the ruins of the old world that used to hum with life, but now they're silent. There are no cars on the streets, no people walking by, no children laughing, just the distant echoes of memories trapped in the skeletons of old buildings and rusting vehicles. The city, what's left of it, is a graveyard. There used to be trees here, tall, proud ones that swayed in the breeze. I remember watching them from my window, listening to the birds. Now, those trees are gone. They were some of the first casualties of the fallout. The forest turned to ash. There's nothing green left. The land has been scorched, and everything that once flourished has withered away, leaving behind a barren wasteland. I make my way down the cracked sidewalk, stepping carefully over the remains of an old storefront. The glass is shattered, the shelves upended. It's a place I've been to before, but today I'm looking for something specific. Food, medical supplies, anything that might help. There's a danger in scavenging these places. They're not as abandoned as they seem. The first few blocks are eerily quiet. The only sound is the crunch of my boots against broken pavement and the occasional rattle of wind stirring the debris. Every now and then, I catch the faintest echo of something moving, a shadow, a rustling sound, the softest scraping noise. But when I turn to look, there's nothing there. Still, I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. It's a feeling that comes from the ruins, from living in a place where danger lurks around every corner. People, animals. There are things in these ruins that you can't trust. It's not just the hunger and the thirst that will get you. It's the desperation of survival. People will do anything to stay alive, even if it means betraying someone else. I reach the old supermarket. The doors are long gone, torn off their hinges in the blast, but there's still the faint smell of rot inside. I've been here before, but it's worth checking again. Maybe something survived. Maybe there's something edible left behind in the storage room. I move cautiously inside, my flashlight cutting through the gloom. The aisles are empty. Most of the shelves have collapsed or been stripped bare. The walls are stained with old dried food that hasn't seen daylight in years. But I don't give up. I crawl over the wreckage, checking every corner, every dark spot that might hide something valuable. That's when I hear it. A faint noise. Not the usual creaks and groans of the building settling, but a soft shuffling sound, as though something or someone is moving just beyond the shelves. I freeze. My breath catches in my throat. I turn off the flashlight and crouch low, listening. The noise isn't the wind. It's too rhythmic, too deliberate. Someone or something is nearby. For a moment, everything goes still. The kind of silence that hangs in the air like a heavy fog. My heart thumps in my chest as I scan the dark, trying to make out shapes in the shadows. The noise stops, and I wonder if I imagined it. Maybe it's just the wind. or some animal scavenging the ruins. But the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and I can't shake the feeling that I'm not alone. I slowly begin to edge back, inching towards the entrance, every step careful, controlled. I keep my ears open, listening for any sign of movement. It's a delicate game now. A misstep, a sound too loud, and whatever's out there could notice me. Then, I see it. Fresh footprints. Not the kind you find from days ago, but recent. They're small, almost childlike. There's a faint smear of dirt beside them, like something was dragged along the floor. I know what that means. Someone's been here. Someone's close. I crouch down to examine the tracks, careful not to make a sound. The ground is covered in ash, but the prints are clear. The soles are worn, but there's no mistaking it. Someone has walked through here recently. A chill runs through me. Who are they? Are they alone? Are they hostile? I take one last glance at the room. The shuffling noise hasn't returned, but I know I can't stay here much longer. Whoever it was, they left the place in a hurry. That dragging smear, it's recent. Too recent. I turn and move toward the exit, my steps as quiet as possible, but the unease in my gut grows. As I step out into the ruins, I glance over my shoulder one last time. For a brief moment, I almost think I see something in the distance, shadows shifting, moving. But when I look again, nothing's there. I know one thing for sure. I'm not alone in this wasteland anymore. Someone else is out here, and I have no idea whether they're friend or foe. The warmth from the fire is a fleeting comfort. We all sit in the shelter, the cracks in the walls letting in a chill that seems to seep into your bones. No matter how close you sit to the flame, the room smells of ash and damp earth, mingled with the faint tang of sweat and the stale scent of survival. Every day is a battle against the cold and the inevitable decay of everything we once knew. The others sit scattered around the fire, each one wrapped in their own silence. Anna shifts beside me, her gaze distant, her red hair now a tangled mess that no amount of effort can tame anymore. It used to be bright, vibrant, a symbol of the fiery spirit she carried with her. Now, it's just another reminder of what the world was and what it's become. Her eyes are tired, but there's still a flicker of something there, something that hasn't entirely faded. In the years since the bombs fell, hope. Or maybe it's stubbornness. She used to dream of rebuilding, of seeing the world come back to life. Those dreams have been shattered, but Anna hasn't given up yet. She turns to me, her voice breaking the silence, soft and hesitant. Do you ever wonder if we'll find another group? Another settlement? Something more than just this? I don't answer immediately. The thought of meeting other survivors is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it could be the first step toward something better, toward finding people who might actually know how to fix what's been broken. On the other hand, every encounter we've had with others has ended in violence or betrayal. Trust in this world is a luxury that few can afford. I don't know, I say, finally, my voice low. I think we're better off just keeping our heads down, staying here as long as we can. But I won't stop looking. If there's a chance to find something better out there, we'll take it. Anna nods, but I can see the doubt in her eyes. I know what she's thinking. How much longer can we stay hidden away in this forgotten corner of the world before it comes crashing down? How long can we keep pretending that things might get better? The silence stretches on, thick and heavy, until Marcus shifts beside me. His broad shoulders are hunched, and the faintest flicker of firelight dances off the blade of the knife he's working on. The rhythmic scrape of metal against stone fills the room, the sound oddly comforting, like the beat of a heart that refuses to stop. But it's also something else. A warning. A reminder that there are dangers still out there. Raiders, wild animals, the occasional storm that could wipe us off the map. Marcus has been a constant in our lives since the start of this nightmare. And though he doesn't speak much, there's a weight to his presence. A weight that doesn't let anyone forget that we're all just one step away from disaster. You planning on using that knife for something? I ask, half teasing, half serious. He doesn't even look up, the blade still rasping against the stone. Always need a sharp edge. You never know when things will get ugly. There's no humor in his words, no hint of sarcasm, just a simple truth. In this world, nothing is ever as it seems. Marcus is practical, methodical, the kind of man who doesn't waste time with unnecessary words. What he's done to survive, what he's been through. It shows in the scars that cover his hands and face. You don't survive as long as Marcus has, without making choices that haunt you, choices that leave marks long after the wounds have healed. A part of me wishes Marcus would open up more, share what's been eating away at him, but I know better. People like him, people who've seen too much, don't talk about it. They keep it buried. It's the only way to keep moving forward. I've tried once or twice to get him to share, but the closest he's come to opening up is a grunt or a sharp "don't ask" when the topic turns personal. Across the room, Lila is wrapped in her jacket, her body hunched against the cold. She's sitting in the darkest corner of the shelter, as usual. The shadows seem to claim her like they do with so many people these days. Lila's been with us for as long as I can remember. And like Anna, I've seen her go from being a frightened girl to a hardened survivor. She's still young, barely 20 now, but she carries herself like someone twice her age, someone who's already seen the worst the world has to offer. Lila, I say, my voice soft, more out of concern than anything. She hasn't spoken much since we arrived here, and though I try not to pry, I can't shake the feeling that she's hiding something dark. She looks up from the small journal she's been scribbling in, her eyes dim but sharp. What? I pause, considering. You're not sleeping again, are you? Her eyes flicker toward the fire, her lips pressing into a thin line. I sleep when I need to. It's an answer, but not a full one. Lila is one of the most resilient people I know, but there's always been something about her, something that feels off. She doesn't trust anyone fully, and I've learned not to press her. She keeps her distance physically and emotionally. It's been like this for a long time. A survivor's instinct, I think, or maybe just the result of a past she can't talk about. We all have our pasts, our ghosts, but Lila's is the quietest and the most dangerous. I've caught her at the edge of the shelter late at night, staring out into the wasteland, as if waiting for something, or someone. And then, when she's noticed, she acts like nothing happened. But I know better. There's something she's not telling us, and I can feel it. You've been quiet, I say, nudging her gently. Is everything okay? Lila doesn't answer right away. Instead, she closes her journal, slipping it into her pack. I'm fine, she says, her voice low. Just thinking. It's the same answer she always gives. The same cold, distant response that always leaves me wanting to know more. But there's no point in pushing her. Not now. Not when there's so much else to worry about. Then, of course, there's Sam. Sam is different from the rest of us. He's the kind of person you either trust completely or not at all. His unpredictable nature, his erratic behavior, it's both a gift and a curse in this world. He's never afraid to take risks, to go to places others wouldn't dare, but the problem is he doesn't always come back from those risks in one piece. We found Sam 6 months ago, stumbling into our camp half dead, covered in cuts and bruises. He was nothing more than a ragged stranger, desperate for food and shelter. But in the weeks that followed, we learned that Sam was more than just a survivor. He was a man with a knack for getting out of tight situations. He could find things that no one else could. Whether it was food, water, or weapons, Sam always had a way of getting what we needed. But Sam's gift comes with a price. His unpredictability makes him dangerous, especially when he starts talking about the past. He says things, mutterings late at night, that don't make sense, like he's remembering things that never happened. Sometimes, when he thinks no one is listening, I hear him speak about the world before the bombs fell. He talks about people he knew, places he visited, as if they're still real. What's the point of all this? Sam says one night, his voice casual, almost mocking. You really think we'll find a way out of this mess? Or are we all just walking to our graves? I glance at him, but there's no humor in his eyes. Just a strange, unsettling seriousness. Sam doesn't speak much about where he came from or what happened to him before we met. But there's always that same strange look in his eyes. Like he's seen something we haven't. Maybe something worse than we can imagine. Sometimes, I think Sam knows more than he's letting on. Maybe more than any of us would want to know. And me? Well, I'm no different than the others. I've got my own ghosts, my own secrets. I used to be a leader, a guide, in a world that needed direction. But the bombs shattered that world. They shattered everything. And now, all I can do is try to keep everyone alive. We move from place to place, always on the edge of something, always afraid of the next threat, the next betrayal. I used to believe in something greater, something beyond just surviving. But with each passing day, it gets harder to hold on to that hope. All we have now is each other, and the dark secret that binds us together. We may not know what tomorrow will bring, but we know one thing for sure. The trust we've built with each other is all we've got. And if it breaks, we'll all fall apart. The radio crackles to life in the background, breaking the silence. It's a voice we've heard before. Calm, steady, always reliable. But even the voice on the radio can't mask the fear that lingers in the air. Something's coming. Something that none of us is ready for. The days are growing longer, and with them, the weight of our situation. The air is thick with uncertainty, like the moment before a storm breaks, when the sky holds its breath, waiting. Supplies are running low. We're rationing food, water, even firewood. Our shelter is little more than a relic of a time long gone, the walls crumbling like the world we once knew. It's not just the cold that's threatening us, it's the emptiness. I sit at the edge of the fire, my fingers trailing through the dirt, mind racing over every possibility. We can't keep living like this. We can't keep surviving in the shadows, scavenging the remnants of a ruined world. Something has to change, but what? We don't have the luxury of answers. All we have is the next day, the next minute. But today feels different. There's something in the air, a shift. I don't know what it is, but I can feel it creeping closer with every passing moment. Marcus stands up abruptly, his eyes narrowing as he stares out into the distance. We need to go out, now. I follow his gaze, my heart skipping a beat. It's not the first time he said this, but something about the urgency in his voice makes me pause. It's been days since we last scouted, and we're running out of time. The storm's coming. We all know it. The weather is getting worse by the day. Rain turning to sleet, then snow freezing everything in its path. And it's not just the weather we're worried about. The tracks? I ask, standing and grabbing my jacket. Marcus nods. Fresh ones. I don't think we're alone anymore. My pulse quickens. Fresh tracks could mean anything. An animal, a person, maybe even a raider group. But if there's one thing we know by now, it's that a sign of life isn't always a sign of safety. Every time we've encountered others, it's ended badly. Trust is a currency in short supply, and we've already learned the hard way that kindness can be a death sentence. Anna joins us shortly, her rifle slung across her back, her face set in a mask of determination. What's the plan? We find out who's out there, Marcus says, his voice hard. And if they're hostile, we deal with it. The tension is palpable. There's a fine line we walk between caution and aggression, and we've crossed it before. Each time, it's felt like we've been left with less of ourselves, less of the people we used to be. But we can't afford to be passive anymore. Not with what's at stake. I look over at Lila. She's still in the corner, her face hidden beneath the hood of her coat. She's been quiet. Too quiet. Since we first noticed the tracks. I can't shake the feeling that she knows something we don't. That she's hiding something. Lila, I say, trying to catch her attention. You coming? She glances up briefly, her eyes dark. For a moment, I think she might say something, anything, but then she just nods and stands. There's no argument, no refusal. She's part of this, whether she wants to be or not. The scavenging mission takes us farther from the shelter than we've ever gone before. We're cautious, moving silently, each step a calculated risk. The world is cold and desolate. Ruins of shattered buildings, overturned cars, a landscape that was once full of life, but now serves only as a reminder of how fragile it all was. We pass through streets that were once bustling with people, now reduced to rubble. There are no voices, no sounds of life, just the wind, howling through broken windows and torn street signs. The silence is suffocating. It feels like the whole world is holding its breath, waiting for something to break. There are no signs of life anywhere. No animals, no scavengers, no other survivors. The streets are eerily deserted, the buildings empty husks. But as we make our way deeper into the city, we begin to see signs of life, of death, really. Everywhere we look, there's something broken. Shattered glass, twisted metal, overturned crates. The remnants of what used to be a thriving city. Now, nothing more than an abandoned ghost town. The tracks lead us into a dense thicket of trees where the ruins of a city block dissolve into wilderness. I can hear the crunch of leaves beneath our boots, the scrape of branches against our jackets. Every sound feels amplified in the silence, and with each step, the air grows thicker with anticipation. Then we see it. A figure, standing in the distance just beyond the trees. It's a person, hunched over, as if they're searching for something. At first, they don't notice us, and we freeze. My heart pounds in my chest, and I can feel the others tense beside me. The wind is picking up, carrying with it the sharp sting of ice. We don't speak. There's no need. We've been through this too many times to not know what comes next. We approach slowly, making sure not to make a sound, but the closer we get, the more I realize something is wrong. The figure isn't moving the way a person should. It's stiff, jerky, like a puppet on broken strings. And then I see it. The blood, spilled across the ground, a trail leading to the figure. Before I can react, Marcus is already moving forward, his hand gripping the knife at his belt. His instincts are sharp, honed by years of survival. He doesn't hesitate. He steps into the clearing and calls out, his voice low but demanding, "Hey, you, stop!" The figure jerks its head up, and for a moment, I swear time stops. It's not a person at all. It's a corpse, half-eaten, the flesh torn away by scavengers, perhaps animals, perhaps something else. The face is a grotesque mask of blood and decay, the eyes wide open, staring blankly into nothingness. Anna recoils, her breath catching in her throat. She stumbles back, her rifle slipping from her hands. Jesus, she breathes. What happened to them? I don't answer. I can't. It's too much. Too familiar. The signs are there, clear as day. Another group, another tragedy, left behind in the wake of a world gone mad. Let's move, Marcus says, his voice cold. He doesn't wait for anyone to follow. We head back toward the shelter, the scene of the body still fresh in my mind. It feels like a warning, like something larger is out there, something we can't escape. The storm seems to follow us. The wind picks up, howling through the trees as if it's chasing us, a force we can't outrun. The first drops of sleet sting my face, and soon the rain turns to ice, each step we take becoming harder, slower. We're fighting against the weather now, against nature itself. I catch a glimpse of Lila in front of me. She's looking around constantly, eyes scanning the horizon. Her silence is more unsettling than the storm. I can't tell what she's thinking, but the unease in the air is starting to seep into her too. But it's not just the weather. There's something else. Something more insidious, something brewing beneath the surface. And it's not the storm. By the time we reach the shelter, the storm has grown into a full-blown blizzard. The wind howls against the walls. The once dim light from our fire barely penetrates the darkness. But as we settle in, the sense of foreboding continues to cling to us. We huddle around the fire, trying to shake off the chill, but there's no warmth in the air. There's no comfort. And that's when it happens. The radio crackles to life. It's the familiar voice of the broadcast. The only thing that has kept us tethered to some semblance of connection to the outside world. But the message is different now. The voice is strained. It sounds desperate. We've been tracking a group of survivors. They're on their way. We don't know their intentions. Stay hidden. Lock up your shelters. If you're hearing this, you're not safe. The voice fades, cutting off in mid-sentence, leaving us in stunned silence. I look at Marcus. His face is unreadable. We've got to move. Now. The threat, the danger, it's not out there anymore. It's here in the heart of this broken world. And it's only a matter of time before we face it head on. The sense of betrayal weighs heavily on us as we realize the gravity of the situation. We've been at the mercy of the storm, at the mercy of nature, but now we're facing a far more insidious enemy, one that could tear us apart from the inside. The quiet tension within the group, the cracks in our fragile unity, have become impossible to ignore. And worse, someone here knows more than they're letting on. That's the terrifying part. We don't know who we can trust. It's then that I catch a glimpse of Lila, her eyes dark, staring into the fire. Her face is unreadable, her posture rigid. Something about her is different now, distant, withdrawn. It's a subtle shift, but it's enough to set off the alarms in my mind. Something is not right, and I can't shake the feeling that she knows exactly what's coming next. The days blur into one another, each indistinguishable from the next. The cold has begun to gnaw at our bones, relentless and unforgiving. The wind howls through the cracks in the shelter, rattling the walls like the fingers of ghosts from a forgotten world. Outside, the land is a wasteland. A barren stretch of desolation that reflects the darkness within each of us. We've seen the world at its worst, and we've learned to survive it. But that doesn't mean we've given up on the hope that one day we might find a way to thrive again. I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to feel hope in the marrow of my bones, to let it warm me like the first rays of sunlight after a long winter. But today, something has changed. There's a shift in the air. A subtle, almost imperceptible shift. But it's there. I first notice it when I wake up. The usual silence greets me, but there's something new in it. A sound. A hum. It's faint at first, like static fuzzing across the radio, but then it clears. A voice. This is the Eastern Collective. To all survivors listening. We're here. We're waiting for you. For a moment, my heart skips a beat. A voice. A group. Not just static or interference, but a message. A survivor group. Somewhere. Anywhere. I feel the air change. The frozen chill in my chest. The cold dread that has gnawed at me for months. Lifts. If only for a moment. A crack in the darkness. It's not much, but it's something. And for the first time in a long time, I can't help but believe that maybe, just maybe, there's more to the world than this never-ending wasteland. Did you hear that? Anna's voice is shaky as she steps into the room, her eyes wide with disbelief. She's been awake longer than me, probably already heard the message, but I know she's thinking the same thing I am. It's not just static. There's someone out there. I nod, my throat tight. I'm not sure what to feel. Relief, excitement, fear, maybe all of it at once. Where? Marcus asks, stepping into the room from the shadows. He's already processing the implications of this new information, his mind working faster than the rest of us can catch up. Did they say where they are? I look at the radio, trying to catch any detail, any clue that could lead us to them. But the transmission cuts off abruptly. Silence returns. The message was short, almost too short. And like all things in this new world, it leaves behind more questions than answers. I swallow, hard, trying to keep my voice steady, as I turn back to the group. They didn't say, I answer, my voice a little strained. But it's something. A sign. Maybe they can help us. Marcus stares out the small, cracked window. Or maybe it's a trap. We don't know who's on the other end of that signal. I know he's right. It could be anyone. Anyone desperate enough to draw survivors into a trap. The world is full of deception, full of hidden dangers that can't be trusted, but something inside me pushes back against that reality. Something inside me refuses to let go of the hope that this fleeting, fragile message might actually be something real. Later that afternoon, the weight of the message still lingers in the air, filling every corner of our shelter. It's not just the words. It's the possibility. It's a crack in the wall of despair, a reminder that the world wasn't always this broken. There was a time when humanity reached out to each other. When survival wasn't a lonely, solitary thing. Maybe it's not too late to return to that. Lila's quiet as ever, but I can see her glancing at the radio. She hasn't said anything since the broadcast. I wonder if she's thinking the same things I am. If she's imagining what could be waiting out there. A part of me wants to believe that we could be safe again, that we could rebuild, find others who share that same vision. But another part of me knows the world doesn't work that way anymore. Maybe it never did. Still, we can't ignore it. If there's even the slightest chance that this message is real, we have to find out. We decide to move out the next morning. The plan is simple. Head east towards the general direction where the signal seemed to originate. We have little to go on, but we have to start somewhere. It could take days, weeks, before we find anything, but it's a direction, a goal, something to cling to. As we prepare for the journey, something unexpected happens. Lila, who's been withdrawn and distant for days, suddenly stands up. She's holding a small, cracked bottle of water, one of the last remaining bottles we have. We should take a detour, she says, her voice soft but firm. There's a grove not far from here. I think we could find food. I pause, looking at her. A grove? She nods. I've been out there before. It's not much, but It might be enough to stretch our rations. Just a few days, maybe. I glance at Marcus. He's not one to take unnecessary risks, but the idea of finding even a small source of food is tempting. We all need something to keep going, something to hold on to. We're all starving for hope, in more ways than one. Marcus hesitates, but finally nods. All right, but we move quickly. We don't know what else is out there. The journey to the grove is slower than we'd hoped. The snowstorm from the previous days has left the ground slippery, and our path is often interrupted by fallen trees and wreckage. Still, the cold isn't as brutal today, and we push through. The landscape is vast and empty, stretching on in every direction. Every shadow seems to hide something dangerous. Every wind seems to whisper of threats we can't see. But we keep moving forward. When we finally reach the grove, it's nothing like I imagined. The trees are sparse, but there are still some patches of greenery. A few resilient plants poking up from the snow. It's not much, but it's something. We gather what we can, roots, berries, some edible plants I can't name, and stuff them into the bags. For the first time in days, I feel a small sense of relief. It's not a feast, but it's more than we had before. As we sit in the grove, huddling together for warmth, the air seems to soften, as if nature itself is giving us a moment of grace. It's a rare, fragile thing. Anna picks a handful of berries and offers them to Lila, her face soft, with a warmth that's been missing for too long. We're going to make it, Anna says, smiling, as she looks around at the others, one day at a time. There's a sense of camaraderie in the air, a moment of peace, fleeting but beautiful. Even Marcus, who's always so guarded, allows himself a small, almost imperceptible smile. There's a shared understanding that we are still alive. That's something worth celebrating. But as the day wanes, and we prepare to leave the grove and head back to the shelter, a part of me remains unsettled. The message we heard on the radio still lingers in my mind. Could it be real? Could there really be other survivors out there? People who aren't as broken as we are? I don't know. But I have to believe it. I have to. As we make our way back through the snow-covered trees, a distant sound catches my attention. A low hum, almost like the sound of machinery. Something mechanical, something alive. It's faint at first, barely audible over the howling wind. But as we continue forward, the sound grows louder, clearer. There's something on the horizon, something out there. My pulse quickens. Could it be? Then, as if on cue, the air shifts, and I hear it, the faintest whisper on the wind. A trap. Stay away. The message, or the warning, is distorted. Broken, but it's there. A faint trace of the same signal we heard earlier. I stop in my tracks. Marcus looks at me, his face hard, unreadable. We need to go, I say, my voice hoarse. We need to go now. But even as I speak, the words feel hollow. We don't know what's waiting for us. Hope can be as dangerous as despair in this world, and I can't help but wonder, has our spark of hope already turned into something far more dangerous? The air feels different today. Thick, heavy, with a sense of impending doom. It's as if the world itself knows something we don't, something we can't prepare for. We've walked miles in the direction of the radio signal, hoping it's real, hoping there's still a world left worth saving. But the journey hasn't been easy. Every step forward has been met with new obstacles, treacherous terrain, dangerous wildlife, and the lingering threat of raiders. But today, something is worse than the rest. It's not just the unease that fills the air, it's the silence. We haven't seen another living soul for days. It feels wrong, Too quiet. Lila's voice breaks the silence as we walk through the dense forest. Her words sharp and urgent. "I don't like this," she says, her eyes scanning the horizon, the shadows deepening around us. "We're close to something. I can feel it, but I don't know if it's what we expect." Her unease rubs off on the rest of us. Marcus, normally the most grounded of us all, has his hand resting on the hilt of his knife. Anna looks over her shoulder, every few steps, her eyes flicking nervously to the surrounding trees. I feel the same unease crawling beneath my skin, but I try to push it away. If there's any chance we'll find other survivors, this is it. We can't afford to turn back now, but the tension builds with every step we take. The further we go, the less we can hear the usual sounds of the wilderness. Birds, the wind, even the distant cry of animals. It's like the world has gone still, waiting for something to happen. Finally, we reach the clearing, and it hits us all at once. The unmistakable sign of human activity. In the center of the clearing is a camp. Makeshift shelters built from scavenged materials, a fire pit surrounded by broken down vehicles, and a few rusted metal containers. There are signs of life here, recent, human life. I don't know whether to feel relief or fear. "Is this it?" Anna whispers. Her voice is shaky with a mixture of hope and dread. She's looking at me, expecting some sort of reassurance. I take a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "I don't know. We have to find out." We move cautiously, staying low and alert. Each of us is armed, and we've learned to move through the world like ghosts. Silent, unnoticed, ready to strike if needed. As we draw closer to the camp, I can see it clearly now. There are no signs of hostility. No armed guards, no barricades, no patrols. Just remnants of a place that once had life in it. Still, something feels off. I can't put my finger on it, but I trust my instincts. We need to be careful. We approach a small wooden hut at the edge of the camp. The door is ajar, and I motion for the group to stay back. I push it open slowly, holding my breath. Inside, I find nothing. The hut is empty, just a few scattered personal items, and the lingering smell of decay. "Clear," I mutter, but the unease doesn't leave me. Lila's voice breaks the silence again, a little sharper this time. "We need to find whoever made this camp. Now." Before I can respond, there's a noise. A sharp crack, like a twig snapping in the woods. We freeze. "Get down!" Marcus hisses, grabbing Anna's arm and pulling her behind cover. Lila and I follow suit, crouching low as the sound grows louder. Footsteps crunching on the dead leaves and snow. The world seems to hold its breath as we wait, eyes scanning the trees, hands on our weapons. Then, out of the shadows, a figure emerges. A man, tall, gaunt, and wearing a long, tattered coat. He's holding something, a rifle slung over his shoulder, but his hands are empty. His eyes are wide with fear. "Who are you?" His voice is hoarse, like he hasn't spoken in days. His gaze darts nervously around the camp, as if looking for an escape. I begin, but before I can finish, a gunshot rings out. The world explodes into chaos. Anna screams as the bullet grazes her arm, blood spurts soaking her sleeve as she collapses to the ground. "Anna!" I shout, scrambling to her side, but I'm too late. The man who had appeared in front of us has already disappeared, and I hear the sound of footsteps running. "A trap! It's a trap! Go!" Marcus yells, pulling me to my feet. His face is a mask of rage. "We can't let them get away. We have to get Anna out of here." We don't have time to think, only to act. The world narrows to a single blinding focus. Survival. We drag Anna behind a nearby wrecked vehicle for cover, and I quickly assess her injury. The bullet didn't hit anything critical, but the wound is deep, and the blood is flowing faster than I'd like. "We need to move," Lila says, her voice sharp. "We can't stay here, not with them on our tail." Marcus nods, his jaw tight. She's right. We've got to get Anna out of here, now. But then we hear it, the unmistakable sound of a vehicle approaching, engine rumbling in the distance, growing louder. They're coming for us, I mutter, barely able to hear my own voice over the pounding of my heart. What do we do? There's no answer for a moment. For a few seconds, everything feels still, frozen. Then Marcus makes his decision. We fight, he says, his voice steady. We fight, or we die here. There's no in-between. Lila's eyes flick to the horizon, calculating. There's a small outpost to the east. We can make it if we run. But she doesn't sound convinced. No one does. Then we move, I say, gritting my teeth. I've never had to fight like this before, but now I have no choice. There's no other option but to fight for our lives, for our future. We haul Anna to her feet, her body trembling from pain and shock, and we sprint. Every step feels like an eternity. As we weave through the trees, the sound of the approaching vehicle growing louder. Suddenly, gunshots ring out, and we dive for cover. The bullets slice through the air, missing by mere inches. We need to split up, Marcus says, his voice calm but edged with urgency. I'll distract them. You two, get Anna to the outpost. Go! Before I can protest, Marcus is already running in the opposite direction, drawing fire. The rest of us don't hesitate. We move. The chase is a blur, each of us pushing our limits, tearing through the forest, the sound of gunfire echoing behind us. But we make it. Just barely. We reach the outpost. A small, dilapidated building that barely holds together in the winds. Inside, there's shelter, a moment of calm. But we don't have much time. Anna collapses, her breath shallow and ragged. I kneel beside her, pulling the makeshift bandage tighter to slow the bleeding. Lila looks out the cracked window. We're not safe here. Not for long. I can hear the sound of the vehicle outside, circling, searching for us. And I realize something that chills me to my core. There's no way out now. No easy escape. The road ahead is paved with impossible choices. And one thing becomes clear. Survival will come at a cost. We've crossed a point of no return. The world feels quieter now in the aftermath of the storm. The fire inside the small outpost crackles faintly. Its warmth, a stark contrast to the cold, desolate landscape outside. We're safe, for the moment, but it doesn't feel like victory. Not yet. We've made it this far, but we all know it's only temporary. The fight, the struggle, the uncertainty, it's never really over. Anna's breathing has steadied. The makeshift bandages I wrapped around her arm seem to be doing their job, though I can tell the pain is still there. Her face is pale, her body stiff with exhaustion. Lila's been keeping watch, her gaze fixed on the horizon, eyes narrowed as she scans for any sign of movement. She hasn't spoken much since we reached the outpost. I can't blame her. There's too much at stake now. We can hear the low hum of the wind outside. It's eerily still, as though the world is holding its breath. We should rest, I say, looking around the small room. There's barely enough space for the four of us. But we're here. Alive, for now. It's been a long day. Anna nods weakly from where she's lying on the cold floor, her body curled up tightly. Yeah, she says softly, though her voice betrays her. There's no comfort in this place, no peace, just cold stone and rusted metal. We've been through so much, and yet it doesn't feel like it's enough to shake off the dread that lingers. Lila, however, shakes her head. We're not safe here. Not yet. Her voice is sharp, filled with a quiet urgency that cuts through the silence. We need to move again. As soon as possible, I meet her gaze, and for a moment, I see the familiar worry in her eyes. She's right. We're sitting ducks in here, exposed and vulnerable, but I'm not sure how much more we can endure. What do you suggest? I ask, my tone steady, but betraying the exhaustion I feel deep inside. I've never been one to let fear show, but at this moment, I'm not sure where to go next. Lila stands up abruptly, walking over to the window. The distant glow of the fading sun catches the edge of her face, highlighting the grim determination etched into her features. She gazes into the horizon, the deep silence pressing against her. Then, she speaks. "There's a signal," she says quietly. "A new one, coming from the west. It's faint, but it's there." The words hang in the air for a moment before they sink in. A signal. We've been listening to those damn radio broadcasts for weeks, searching for something, anything, that could lead us to other survivors. Hope, if you can call it that, is a fragile thing now, but it's all we have left. "You're sure?" I ask, walking over to her, my voice a little more frantic now. "How long?" "Just a few hours ago," Lila replies, her voice calm, but tense. It's faint, almost as if they don't know we're listening. But it's real. I look at Anna, who has propped herself up on her elbows, her face pale but determined. Her eyes flick to me, searching for some kind of reassurance. "We can't stay here," I say, my voice firm, but the doubt gnaws at me. What if this is another trap? What if it's nothing more than a glitch in the static of the ruined airwaves? "We'll go," I say, after a beat. We don't have a choice. We leave the outpost in the dead of night, moving quickly but cautiously. The cold air bites at our faces as we travel in silence. The only sound, the crunch of our boots on the frozen earth beneath us. Anna struggles to keep up, but her injuries slow her down. I have to keep checking to make sure she's all right. But there's no time to stop. The signal is getting stronger, pulsing at regular intervals, a rhythmic beacon in the desolation, beckoning us onward. The journey is long, and the weight of the night presses down on us. I can't shake the feeling that something's off, that the closer we get to the source of the signal, the more danger we're walking into. My instincts, honed after months of constant survival, are screaming at me to turn back, to go in the opposite direction. But we can't. There's no going back. We have to keep moving. The first rays of sunlight break over the horizon, casting a soft glow over the barren landscape. We've reached the edge of a small settlement. At first, it looks abandoned. Just another broken down place, left to rot in the aftermath of the world's end. But then I notice something, a glimmer of movement near the far end of the settlement. My heart pounds in my chest. Lila is the first to react. She's already moving toward the settlement. Her footsteps light and steady, but I can't help but hold my breath. This is it. We've come this far. If this is a trap, if we're walking into another ambush, we'll have no way out. I motion for the others to follow, though my legs feel like lead as I walk through the half-destroyed streets. Each step feels heavier, the silence unnerving, the air growing colder with every passing second. And then, there it is. A building at the far end of the settlement. It's intact, the windows barely cracked, the doors slightly ajar. Inside, I can see shapes moving. Figures, shadows that seem to flicker in and out of view. I feel a chill run down my spine, but I force myself to step forward. We have no choice but to find out who, or what, is waiting for us. As we approach the building, I can hear voices, low murmurs, almost indistinguishable from the wind. My pulse quickens, and I feel a knot tighten in my stomach. "What do you think?" Marcus whispers to me, his voice barely audible. "I don't know," I admit, "but we need to see this through. It could be the answer we've been looking for." We approach the door, my hand instinctively reaching for my weapon, but I stop myself just in time. This is it. The moment that could define everything. I push the door open slowly, and the world inside is like nothing I've seen before. The first thing that hits me is the sound. The hum of machinery. the low murmur of voices. It's a place alive with activity, people, technology, life. But something isn't right. The people inside aren't what I expected. They aren't survivors like us. They're different. They're waiting for us. And when they see us, when they recognize us, their eyes go wide with something I can't quite place. "Who are you?" one of them asks, his voice shaking. "Where did you come from?" The silence falls heavy between us as I take a step into the room, my heart pounding. I don't have an answer. I don't know who they are. I don't know what they want. I don't know if we're safe here. The broadcast cuts out abruptly, leaving only the crackling static to fill the void. The voice that had guided us through the desolate days, our fragile link to the outside world, fades away into nothingness. But the question remains, who are they? And why were they waiting for us? The static lingers in the air, like a haunting echo, and as the silence stretches on, I realize this is only the beginning. Whatever we've found here, whatever truth lies beyond this settlement, it's not the answer we were hoping for. There's more to this world than we thought, and the storm is just beginning. If you enjoyed this broadcast, please like this video and subscribe to our channel to support us as we continue to bring you these stories from the edge of the world. Share this with those who need to hear the stories of survival, resilience, and hope. We're in this together, and remember, the journey isn't over yet. Stay tuned for the next broadcast.